GM, welcome back to the channel on what is being called Black Monday here. So as you can see, the charts do not look good. A lot of, well, the majority of things are down double-digit percentages, and some big double-digit percentages like minus 30% on certain meme coins. Over 24 hours, Bitcoin down 12% here, 51K. You can kind of see this region of support, which is holding around the 50 to 52K region. We've been dipping into here. Bitcoin did breach below 50K earlier as well this morning. So not looking great. And the reason for this, there's just a multitude of factors, but the main one being Japan from my understandings. But of course we have kind of World War III fears, or at least Middle East concerns as well. So obviously very bleak day in the markets, but let's just look through some of the stuff here. So this of course is the Bitcoin chart. Do want to pull up ETH here as well. ETH absolutely getting obliterated here. Jump trading seemingly are closing down at least their market making business. And if you've followed the Arkham kind of profile on Jump, they've been relentlessly selling out their ETH. So over yesterday, like every hour they were selling like $1 million worth of ETH or whatever it was. And I think they've emptied their full stack at this point. So relentless, just continued selling. Obviously liquidations occurring as well as people's points of liquidation have been met. We just scroll down here as well. So this is ETH to BTC. Just scroll out a little bit. ETH Bitcoin pushing up towards 5.5 more recently. That was the 11th of July. Big crash down, bottomed here at 4 million sats. That is the yellow line on the bottom there. So 4 million sats, if I can just make that visible. 4 million sats only. Pretty crazy stuff to see, but maybe that I'll try and find a bit of a base in that region. And this is Sol ETH. So Sol ETH went all the way back up to the range highs yesterday as ETH was being gigadumped by Jump, and now Sol obviously coming down as well. It's now sat at 5.1. So Sol ETH, Sol obviously a bit stronger than Ethereum here. I think it's around 120 bucks as we're filming here. So this was Donald's chart that he posted, some levels of, just to look at. So that is the kind of support we just highlighted, around 50 to 52K. Wick below, we'll see if it can hold there. But the main one below here is between this kind of 40, 43K region. And looking at Crown's analysis earlier, he is rather bearish here, saying, look, these are the areas that Bitcoin can potentially bottom in. He's saying the bottom one here, the 618 fib, all the way down to $33,000. That is, he says, World War III starting. That's the kind of pico bottom he would see happening. But areas to look at, this is 39 to 40K and just above at around 44s. So lines up kind of with this blue area in here. So we are certainly not out the woods, and we're going to have to see what happens today in terms of, the US markets haven't opened yet. Are we going to get a huge sell-off in the US markets? Because let's just go through some of these headlines here. $1 billion liquidated from the crypto market in the last 24 hours. Exchanges don't typically share all of their bad stuff. If you've got all your traders getting smashed, maybe say there's like 3 billion liquidated, you'll just say there's 1 billion because you don't want to put people off using it. So a lot of people have been carried out. This is the JPY USD chart. So the Japanese yen is strengthening significantly, which is one of the reasons why this unwind is occurring. So they're calling this the yen carry trade unwind. And this means that traders were borrowing in a very low interest rate environment in Japan. So imagine Japanese investor, 0 interest rate in Japan. So you borrow a load of JPY and then you use that to convert into USD and then buy US stocks. But now the BOJ, Bank of Japan, increased interest rates by 25 basis points. And as we know, the Fed did nothing with their elevated rates. And so this has now meant the yen has strengthened against US dollar. So as this guy goes on, these traders are now in big shits. Not only must they repay higher interest for their JPY borrowed, they're now facing huge Forex losses as well. And so they might not have enough to repay the yen they've borrowed. So a huge unwind of trading positions here. They're going to be selling their US based stocks to try and unwind and convert back to Japanese yen. And this can obviously lead to more selling pressure on the US stock markets here. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when the US markets open up. This is the Japanese stock market here, crashing from like 41,000 down to 31,000, one of the biggest collapses they've seen in their history, which is pretty incredible. And so you would think there's potentially going to be some major intervention on the way. And this story is playing out across the globe here. So South Korea, their market's down 5.4%. They've halted programmatic trading of sell orders, so stopping some sell orders. Turkish Stock Exchange triggers the circuit breakers. European markets down like 2% across the board, which is in a single day is a lot. Obviously, when you compare that to the Nikkei, not as bad, but definitely some major issues across global financial markets here. And this was the comments from the Japan Finance Minister, Mr. Suzuki. We're watching the stocks fall with strong interest. Important for government to judge the situation calmly, continuing to watch markets with a strong sense of urgency, and stocks have various impacts on Japanese economy. It sounds like, yeah, we realize shit is hitting the fan here. There's going to be some serious phone calls going across central banks today, and we'll see what the kind of outcomes are, whether there's going to be some emergency action taken. I guess there probably will be during this week. Whether that happens today, we'll have to wait and see, but there's going to be a lot of news coming out around this, I would expect. And the kind of follow on from this is in the US, obviously market's not yet open, so all eyes on that. Later today, 2:30 p.m. UK time. We're now seeing people say the Fed is way behind the curve. They have to start cutting. People are calling for emergency cuts to now take place, maybe even this week. So again, all eyes and ears out for that. But the September meeting is now pricing in. This is not one cut. This is a double cut. 50 basis points cut here. 93.5% chance of that occurring. So the market's saying Powell's offside. He's going to have to move very swiftly. And of course, this isn't actually until the 18th of September. So that is like 5.5 weeks out. So pretty crazy stuff. Poly Markets is also pricing in from this market, which has got like $3 million in it. 125 basis points worth of cuts. 29% probability of that. A total of $500,000 bet on 125 basis points occurring by the end of this year. And you've got September, November, December, just 3 meetings for them to achieve that in. So some rapid rate cutting potentially on the horizon there. And a lot of people are suggesting the money printer will be coming. And if we start to see a collapse in the US stocks, if that occurs today, further continuation of Friday, then I think there's going to be some backstop-based action or something's going to happen, because going into the election, you can't have the economy collapsing, as the incumbents will be almost certainly ousted, and that will reduce the chances, I would imagine, of Kamala winning if economy is collapsing under her watch. Then, of course, we have these kind of tensions in the Middle East. Now, this was kind of positive to see a statement coming out around we're not looking to escalate tensions in the region, after the G7 countries were saying, let's try and cool things off a bit here. So what we could see is we kind of priced in the worst case scenario, because it seemed over the weekend that a massive outbreak of war, and maybe, this could escalate with other countries backing these various states getting involved. We've seen stuff around Russia, US, etc. This could be a really, really big problem. But it seems that maybe this is starting to cool slightly, which would be very much welcome. I do think part of the obvious collapse in Bitcoin price was the fact we were having to price in not a Middle East conflict, and there's always conflict over there, but a wider scale, big type of conflict, and people just unwinding and selling off with that kind of overhang kind of over our heads, which is not good to see. So hopefully we'll see some form of resolution from this, or at least both sides come out and have similar rhetoric around not trying to further escalate these tensions. You're also seeing crazy tensions across places like England right now. There's a lot of stuff happening in England where there's these riots. This kind of behavior, this social unrest, is something that is kind of stemming from economic issues as well as these social issues as well. So I think there's going to be potentiality for money printer off the back of, trying to calm people in society. My last thing to look at here was this, because a lot of people have been mentioning the COVID crash, and there's going to be some similarities drawn here. This was March 2020. That is the actual fractal from March 2020 with a big drop here as COVID is announced. And then this is the current market cycle with a big drop. Like, the size and scope of this drop, while it's not out of the bounds of normalcy for a Bitcoin cycle. It is like, I think it's like 28% from the highs down here. Don't quote me on that one. But with what has happened across the broader markets, it does seem like we have a kind of reset moment in the market here. And we know what happened post-COVID there. Whether we get some kind of resolution here, because as I mentioned, elections coming up, you want to see a V-shaped recovery if your markets are cratering. So going to be interesting to see what happens here. SPX, NASDAQ, all eyes on the price today and seeing what rhetoric comes out from the US as well. So pretty crazy one. Bags down horrendously. Not a fun day. If you are struggling, do reach out to someone to talk about it, as it will make the problems a little bit easier to deal with. But that is all from today. We'll see you in the next one. Peace. Have a good one.